right, so this is the next lesson that you're going to need for your percent math pack. Excuse me, this is the lesson that you're going to need for pages 10 to 14. This is finding the percent. So we've already talked about finding the percent of a number. This time what they're going to do is give you two numbers and you'll have to figure out what percentage it is. So, to find the percent of one number to another, you must divide the first number by the second number, then multiply by 100. So I want you to think about it like this. What you're looking for is the percentage of two different numbers. So a good example of this would be, I use this all the time when I'm marking your stuff. So let's say you had a quiz and you got 9 out of 10. Well, I need to figure out the percentage of that. So 9 out of 10 is 90%. Obviously with some numbers it's easier, with some you might need a calculator. But how you do it is you just divide the bottom number into the top number. It's like a fraction. So here's an example. Let's say you had a quiz and you got 24 out of 35. So there was 35 questions, 24 of them you got right. What is your percentage? So there's two steps to this. First of all, you need to take your 24 and divide it by 35. Now, I know you know how to do outside calculations, and I know you know how to do two-digit division. But when it comes time for these kinds of things, let's use a calculator, because the more important part for you here is the steps, for you to understand the concept of how this works. So, grab your trusty calculator, and you take your 24, and you divide it by 35. So you end up with a really big long number, and often this is going to happen. Now what you need to do, just like we've done before, when dealing with percent, the more important part is your 2 digits after the decimal. So in this case, you can kind of ignore all the rest of it. 0.68 or 68 hundredths. So you remember 0.68. So that's what I'm going to write down. There we go. Okay. And then step 2 is you take that decimal, and when you're turning a decimal to a percent, you times by 100. Now I know we've been doing a lot of dividing by 100 for the past pages before, but now we're doing the opposite because you're changing the decimal to percent, so you're moving that decimal 2 spots over. So now I have 68%. So what I want you to think about is when you have two numbers and you have to figure out 24 is how much percent of 35, 24 divided by 35 is 0.68 plus a lot of other numbers. 0.68 times 100 is 68%. So if this was your quiz and you got 24 out of 35, you got 68% on your quiz. I use a lot of this kinds of calculation when I'm doing your percentages for your marks and also for your attendance. So this is actually stuff you will use in real life, I promise. And then of course, don't forget your answer sentence. Therefore, 24 is 68% of 35. So we're going to do another example. So take a look down here for example number 2. Let's move this a little bit. 14 of 108. So in the previous examples, in the previous pages, they would have been asking you what 14% of 108 was, and then you would have had to change it to a decimal and times. This is kind of like the opposite, where you've got 14 of 108. What is that percent? So you take your 14 and you divide it by 108. Get out your trusty calculator again. get rid of whatever your answer was before. So 14 divided by 108 equals, again, a nice big long number. Remember, you really only need the first 2 digits after the decimal because you don't need to write down the whole thing. So I have 0.12 or 12 hundredths. So that is what I'm going to write down. And of course your step 2, 0.12 or 12 hundredths times 100 will get you the percentage that you're looking for. When you're timesing by 100, you move that decimal 2 spots to the right to make it bigger. So my answer is 12%. Therefore, don't forget your little therefore symbol, 14 is 12% of 108. So this is how you find the percent of a number. If you have questions about this or about any of the questions in your math, please get in touch and I will, of course, help you.